Hi, my name's Lissa M. Cowan, founder of Good Stories Grow Here Writing Studio, a community of people who wish to write consistently and also enjoy the writing process. Do you ever get those flashes of genius and you know that if you don't jot down what's in your head, it will vanish in a puff of brain smoke? Well, that's exactly what happened to me last week. The problem was, though, that I had a needle sticking between the thumb and forefinger of each hand. And I also could see out of the corner of my eye a needle jutting out from my right temple. I looked down at my feet and lifted up one of my feet and saw that there was another prickly number jutting out from my big toe. The problem was that I had this particularly perfect turn of phrase in my head, and I wanted desperately to write it down. It was something I was sure one of my characters in my new book would say, and if I didn't get it out on paper in the next 20 seconds, then it would be lost forever. And so I called out to Lana, my acupuncturist, asking her in the sweetest way possible if she could please write down what I was about to tell her. I couched this by saying what an awful memory I had and how what was in my head was so perfect, and that she'd really be doing me a huge favor if she helped me out, that in doing this nice thing, she was kind of like a co-writer, and that I would name her in the acknowledgments if the effing thing ever got published. Yeah, I actually said that. I went a bit overboard, but it was only because I was really grateful to be able to download my perfect phrase exactly as it was in my head. So that brings me to my first point, which is really what got me obsessing about what not to do when writing a book. Never underestimate your flashes of genius. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. There are times when we wake up at 2 a.m. and we think, oh my goodness, I've got this amazing thing and I need to get it out of my head and onto paper or onto my computer. And then we do that, and then we go to bed, and then we wake up the next morning only to see that it was really just the evening's meal digesting. On occasion, actually, I've done this several times where I've stumbled out of bed and written down my so-called good ideas, only to realize the following day that they were really just brain farts doing vaudeville. That's pretty much it. But that doesn't mean that all bursts of so-called genius should be discounted. It turns out that the phrase I asked Lana, my acupuncturist, to write down while I was impersonating a pincushion led to a scene between two characters in my book that was actually pretty pivotal. So along with that thing about not discounting your 2 a.m. flights of fancy, I'd like to talk to you about other things that I think you shouldn't do when you're scribbling creatively that next best-selling book or novel. So I'm going to say it once more. Never underestimate your flashes of genius, if you didn't get that before. And the next thing is never try to write a bestseller. What? Why would I not try to write a bestseller? That's what I'm here for, Lissa, you might be saying. But writers generally just write down their crazy ideas, and sometimes this wildness and weirdness becomes big, as in the case of Helen Macdonald's H is for Hawk, or Cheryl Strayed's Wild, or a little children's book series you may have heard of featuring a protagonist called Harry Potter. So none of these authors set out to write a bestseller. They didn't think they'd hit it big time. They were just live streaming their imaginations, hoping someone else would enjoy what they created. Something to think about. The next thing I want you never to do is never to shrug off small wins. If you think, oh, I have to write 1,000 words a day, and then you don't do that, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot when you criticize yourself. So what I usually like to do is, do something, do one thing, have a glass of champagne, walk in the forest, completed a first chapter, movie night. You know what I'm talking about. Just really encouraging yourself, because those small wins are really important. Never lie and tell people you're not really writing. Remember those times when you're working with your imaginary friends and feeling ashamed like you were 5 years old playing doctors with the boy or girl next door. Maybe you told people you were cleaning the fridge or nursing a cold when you were really writing. I know it's not always easy to tell people. It can be batshit crazy to expose what you're up to because it feels unsure and feels nebulous because heck, you don't even know what you're doing, right? Yet the more you tell people you're writing, the easier it will be to be okay with it. In time, hopefully you'll learn not to feel ashamed of bringing your creative gifts to the world. Now the next thing I want you to never ever do when you're writing is never deprive yourself of food or sleep or exercise. Yes, I know French writer Marcel Proust survived on opium and croissants and a few minutes of sleep. But that was Paris in the 20th century, and this is now. Today we know that our body and our mind work together like a finely tuned clock. If you abuse your body through lack of sleep and snack on Cheetos for dinner, then eventually it will catch up with you. Obviously once in a while is okay, but every night, eventually your writing will suffer too. Never go out if what you really want to do is stay in. Of course, there are some exceptions to this, like if it's your mom's birthday or a friend who's in crisis mode and really needs you, or an outing with the kids that you've been planning for weeks. But that's all. Never follow the voice in your head that's critical of every word you write. Acknowledge the voice, yes, even thank it for keeping you safe with a roof over your head and food in your belly. Then politely decline its invitation to abuse yourself and your work. And go with the sunnier voice that says, "Hey girl," or "Hey boy, I think you got this." Never drink one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer in succession, as the song says. I know the writer archetype is of a boozer, though it's hard to write when you're 2 sheets to the wind or feeling sickly or too tired. I suggest you pick one poison and stick with it. Like, coffee, tea, glass of wine. If you mix your liquor with beer or wine, then the night just gets ugly. A shot of bourbon between bouts of writing has never, to my knowledge, ever hurt anybody's output. That's my poison. Never make a pact with the devil. You know those scenarios where you overpromise something to someone, i.e. credit card companies, banks, so you can have that fancy vacation or that fancy car, and then you have to keep doing that thing that you don't really want to do, such as working long hours at something you despise, which takes you away from your writing. Your future self will thank you if you plan wisely and say no to that shiny thing. Something to think about. Lastly, never, ever, ever underestimate how amazing you are, the breadth of your imagination and the beauty of your heart and mind. Never, ever. Thanks for being here, and bye for now.